Hi everyone. Um, I've been through, I guess you would say, a lot in the last few years. Um, about 2012, I started to have some massive health issues, and it began to really weigh on my life. I was a full-time mom. I took care of my own mom, and it was very difficult for me. But to be honest, I had the strength, I had the energy, I had the ambition, and there was something in me that was allowed to continue to do all the things I needed to do on a daily basis. And I was not tired, and I was not sick of taking care of them. That included my dad's and my son's dad and his family. When they needed me, I did things for them. I never asked for anybody for anything because that's not me. But I find myself in a lot of very, very upset situations now. After 2012, I started to get really sick. And I noticed how sick I was getting. I was in the middle of a lot of relationship issues with different people and trying to put everybody else before myself kind of took a very big impact on me. And that was the last thing I wanted. I didn't want to feel like every day I woke up, something was going to be wrong, or that, oh, great, I have something else I need to do. I didn't want to feel that way ever. So my being sick, I pushed it off. I passed it off. I pretended like everything was just fine because that's what I had to do. And then I started to get really, really, really ill. And every day waking up was harder and harder. Doing things physically day after day, especially everything that I had done. I had done so many things. I look back now and I'm amazed at how much I got done in one day, where it can take me a week or even 2 weeks to do now, if I even get that far. So I went through all of that, and I went through a lot of ups and downs. I found people in my life that were very large parts of my life that did bring me happiness. Through all the chaos, they were there to be able to make me laugh. And I was able to make them laugh. And somehow that's another thing in my life that I miss, is being able to just laugh again, because I no longer feel safe to laugh. I have gotten to the point inside myself, mind, body, spirit, where it feels like I'm stuck and I don't know how to get past certain things. I really don't. They started doing tests and blood work on me in 2012 and started to find, of course, things wrong and abnormalities. And of course, you know that means you're going to have long-term, on my situation anyway, I was going to have long-term health issues, which of course is what happened and continues. So as each day progressed and each situation progressed, new things started to pop up and new things started to pop up and new things started to pop up. It was like a cake with so many layers that eventually it just falls over. And that's how my life had started to feel at one point. I had let the stress of it really take over everything. And then the stress of the outside world and the things I was going through with relationships in my life that were very negative and toxic, it just kind of pulled me down. And it kind of took over everything to the point where I didn't know who I was anymore. And I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know how I was going to continue. I didn't know if I even wanted to try. And that's not a good feeling. It's really not a good feeling. Being there for everybody else had always made me happy, but it changed because my needs changed. And when my needs changed and their take on what I needed were not the same thing and they weren't able to give back, it was very frustrating. And I started to close off. When I started to close off to people, I started to close off to myself and just kind of bury myself underneath something so that I didn't have to think about things and I didn't have to want things in my life because I felt like it was never going to be possible. And I think that's where things just really got bad. In 2014, I ended up losing some people in my life, but I also ended up going through a surgery, which was supposed to help, get rid of most of my issues, including my pains that were internal and some of the other issues that were coming from it. Long story short, gallbladder removal, you think everything would be fine again. That's not what happened. It was not just my gallbladder that had issues, but in that situation, I had been so pain intolerant up until it was so extremely bad that I needed to go in and just accept the fact that I'm in pain and that this was going to be something that was just going to be. I guess I just wasn't ready to believe that it was more than just my gallbladder. So after the removal, I went through, of course, the situation where you go through healing, and afterwards I was still in pain. Within a week, I was having such really bad pain, and I could not figure out what it was. I was in the ER, I was in the hospital, I was going through so much, and yet there was no answer. They had no answer. It wasn't any of my other organs that they could see. But see, we're from a small place in a very small town. So getting the best tests and technology here is not an easy thing. So I ended up losing 2 people in 2014. And actually even more than that, which made it very difficult. I had struggled through the next 2 years of going to doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, watching my levels of my thyroid jump and decline and jump and decline. And it was a roller coaster. So going to an endocrinologist started to help. But that wasn't just it. I ended up going to different specialists in GI, trying to figure out what was going on. And they had no idea. They put me through so many tests, and let me tell you, they were not easy tests. The stress your body goes through to do these tests is extreme, and it is painful. When you're already in pain and they're pressing on things, it's painful. They found out so many different things. I had cysts on my ovaries. I had cysts on my uterus. I had cysts in my uterus. I had thickening of the uterine wall. I had, where the gallbladder was, still pain in the liver and whatever it is that's touching behind it, whether it's just the liver itself or if it's because of the connection that they seal it off when they take out the gallbladder. I'm not sure if that's something that irritates something inside or not, but digestively, something is very wrong. I began to bleed internally, and this all was a nightmare. So when you go to the doctor's office or you end up in the ER over and over and over because you're bleeding internally and you don't understand it, all the biopsies in the world for endoscopies, colonoscopies, small bowel follow throughs, you name it, and yet you have no answers, is very, very heartbreaking because you want to get a handle on what's going on. Because if you know what it is that's going on, at least you have some hope of being able to tackle the problem. And if there is no ability to tackle it, at least you know what it is that's going to continue to cause it. And either find a way to slow it down or to ease it, or what sort of situations you can go through to help it. It doesn't mean that it might be an absolute cure, but at least it's something. The not knowing is the hardest part. Believe it or not, it really is. 2016, things had gotten a lot worse. And my illness had gotten a lot worse. I was having infections all the time. I was sent to more specialists, including an allergist, to an ear, nose, and throat surgeon who is also an asthmatic doctor, who realized that my asthma was out of control. And this was something I had never had to deal with before in my life. It was out of control. He had put me on medication, which recently was still out of control. And they had to stick me on something that was much more potent and had steroids in it so that it could help my body, because I have no immune system, which is something we found out. I have no immune system. I can't fight things off. So when he changed my asthma inhaler, it helped so that my bronchial tubes and my lungs were not getting infected, and it could fight off asthma without swelling it and causing, stuff in the bronchial tubes to be stuck because you can't breathe it out. And it doesn't irritate it. So through all of this, I start shots for anti-allergies because I'm allergic to, oh my God, more things than I can possibly even explain. There are very few things that I am not allergic to. Pets are one, but trees, weeds, grasses, dust, plants, which I had no idea that there was plant spores that sit in the dirt, which even in hospitals, I can get an allergic reaction. Medications, I started to realize the lists of medications I was allergic to. And I had never really realized how bad it was and how hard it was to breathe. Now I cough all the time, and it's very difficult. I was then told I had IBS-D and Crohn's disease, but yet we can't pinpoint it. So they're now seeking out a specialist in Iowa City. I've been to Iowa City for another reason. A couple of years ago, before Christmas, I ended up in the ER. And I had stood up. I was talking to my son. I wasn't doing anything special. And all of a sudden, I collapsed. My legs went out and my arms went out. Everything went out. So they took me to the ER. My son took me to the ER the next day because it was worse. And I realized that at that point, I had had a major tinnitus, which is like the ringing in the ears or whatnot, which was triggered by, whatever throat and sinus infections were going on. But when I was sent there, he had explained to me that I'm going to need to do an MRI, but since it was on the weekend and nobody comes in, I would have to wait until the following week. I did. I went in and I got the MRI, but unfortunately, because we are a small town, the doctors and the systems here are not as able to test or able to give us the best results from whatever you take. So the MRI showed things that were abnormalities. With that, let's fast forward after one surgery for sinus. He did go in and remove that bone. And I haven't had sinus issues since, which is good. I'm actually happy about it. Breathing issues, bleeding issues a little bit, but he did clear paths so that my sinuses could drain correctly and I wouldn't have problems. And it's a world of difference. And the fact that I can breathe is amazing because I couldn't do that before. So after going through all that and my allergies and my asthma was now being controlled a little bit better, here I am with an abnormal MRI, and it's a year later and the same situation happens. It's like a stroke. This side of my face, not working the best. My right side, numb. I guess the best way you can categorize it is if your arm gets numb and tingles, it's like that, but it hurts badly. And if you touch it, it actually hurts. But it's numb to the feeling, like you can't feel inside what you're doing, but it hurts to the touch. And it weakens, it drops things, you fall. I fall a lot. And that's another thing that felt so embarrassing and humiliating, that here I am, I'm not that old, and I'm starting to suffer from falls, which make no sense. I don't have the balance I had. I had my son that helped me so much. If I went to fall, I could grab a hold of him. He knew right away. And it worked. But then, of course, he goes off to college. Your son moves on with his life, which is the right thing. But for me right now, it's very difficult because I still fall. And I've fallen in places that are very upsetting. It caused fears and paranoias and upsets, which had never happened before. I never had that bad of a situation. I became depressed because I had so many things that were going wrong, and I'd lost so much and lost not only my own freedoms of whatever's going on physically in my body, I had lost people in my life that was very difficult to lose, including my mom. And when you pile all of this on top of each other, it makes a very big big, outstanding depression. And so I finally agreed I would see a counselor after trying 2 different medications that are combined now. They're actually helping me, yes, but if I don't stay going to my counselor, I have a problem. So the whole coronavirus thing kind of twisted everything. It caused the Zoom thing, which is great because at least now I don't feel so paranoid about going outside and getting sick. Because again, I have no immune system. So I don't go shopping. I don't do none of that. I used to go to the laundromat, which was much easier than trying to go up and down stairs to do laundry. And I've avoided doing that, but I've had help doing my laundry. So I've gotten to the point where now they had sent me to the University of Iowa to do another MRI, which was in January. They had found in the MRI that there were absolute lesions and it was presumptive positive for MS. Now, considering you can't just open up the skull and take a piece of brain without hurting something, that's the only way that they're able to determine that, yes, you have MS by your symptoms, by what they can rule out, and by what they see on the images. And it was presumptive positive. There were several lesions. So each time a lesion happened, something went wrong. And when I ended up in the ER in January before the MRI, I was flopping around on the gurney and I couldn't breathe. My watch, thank God it's charging now, but it dialed 911 for me because I couldn't breathe and my heartbeat was so high. My blood pressure was through the roof. It was crazy. And if it wasn't for that watch that was able to dial 911 for me, I would have been in a lot of trouble. And I probably wouldn't be here. That day was a huge change. After that, the MRI was even more so bittersweet. It was like, okay, now we know what's going on, but why are we not pursuing what you found? And I ended up with a doctor who was not really a doctor of neurology. She was basically like a nurse practitioner. She really wasn't a doctor. And she was not pursuing it. And as she was letting the situation continue and not pursuing it, I was falling down. I was having major memory issues. I couldn't remember how to type. I had forgotten how to spell words. I had lost a lot of my vocabulary. Mind you, my vocabulary list was very long. It just was. I don't know why, but it was. And then it was gone. When I stood before a little machine that asks you to punch in your telephone number, and you, after 20 years of having this same number, and yes, have had to call your own homes several times in those 20 years, you should know what those numbers are. And I'd always known them. It was gone. I couldn't punch them in because I couldn't remember. And that was a very big blow to the pit of your stomach. You want to throw up. If you can't remember things like that, and you have to retrain yourself to remember certain things, it's almost a feeling of why bother trying? And it makes you want to cry. I came home that day crying. I still could almost cry. Because it shouldn't be that way. And as I sat there with my doctor at an appointment shortly after we found out the presumptive positives and the fact that I was falling so often, and I looked at my primary care doctor, who's a wonderful doctor, who's been there with me through everything, has sent me to different places, has been perfect and wonderful and helpful and listens to the problems. And I asked him, why are they doing this? Why are they waiting? If this is absolutely MS, which is what it shows, and yes, it says it's positive. If it is, why are they sitting there waiting, letting me forget stuff and not treating it or doing something for it? And I said to him, be honest with me. If I forget this and I forget things, I'm not going to get those back, am I? And he looked at me with his mouth dropped and he said, no. I said, so then why are we waiting around and not doing something? Because I don't want to wait another year or 2 years of my life waiting for someone to fart around, trying to figure out what they're doing, their heads up their butts, to get to a point where even if it can't fix it, it can slow down the progression so that I don't lose everything at once. He did some calling. I did some calling. I finally had to call there and get very upset and tell them straight out, I want a new doctor. Because if she's not going to push to help me, I need somebody who's an MS specialist, not somebody who claims to be in the neurological nurse practitioning. I need an MS doctor then. That says positive, that means it's positive. I need an MS doctor. And they finally forwarded me to a MS specialist who sent me a packet of 1,000,001, which is actually like 30 different panels of tests, to see if any of them were off that would have caused any kind of memory loss or issues. They just had to rule it out in order to keep going. They have to rule certain things out for my insurance, which I get because I've had the same problem with my insurance on other things. So I get a phone call that tells me that there are irregularities and that there is severe inflammations and severe inflammation levels, which I already knew there was going to be. It had happened before when I was in severe pain in my side, in my stomach, from just after the gallbladder issue with the Crohn's IBSD. I had that before. But the fact that there are certain irregularities in my cells and cell counts and what's in the cells itself means that there's something that's not right. So I've been fighting for years with my SSI, trying to get them to understand that I can't work. I am sick all the time. I've actually been so sick, I get migraines all the time. I end up falling asleep. I get to the point where I can be throwing up for days on end. I can be to the point where I can't even leave the house because I'm in the bathroom the whole day. It's become very difficult. But no matter how many times I try to get that through their heads, it's not working to the point where they're understanding. I had to try to do this alone because here in the wonderful state of Iowa, there's more private, I guess, private lawyers than there are ones that are willing to help people with SSI. The private lawyers will usually take the case, usually. But see, here's the thing. not a lot of private lawyers want to take the more difficult cases. And mine was a very difficult one. There was still testing going on. There were still issues going on. There were still problems going on. And my health was declining. It's still declining. So when it got to that point, and I knew that this was a situation I wasn't going to be able to go back to work. There's no way I was going to be able to work and deal with my physical limitations, mental limitations, verbal limitations. I didn't know what to do anymore. I really didn't. I still to this day don't know what to do. So I got to this situation where I know I don't have the ability to do all this stuff that everybody else can do. And I know my body's limitations. I can't explain it to everybody else. They don't live in my body. They don't get what's going on internally. But because of it, where am I supposed to go? We live in the middle of Iowa, which is a farming place. Where am I supposed to work? Where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to make a living for myself? How am I supposed to do this when I'm ill? And most of the time is spent having to go to different doctors and specialists per week. How? And try to continue to have a normal life. How am I supposed to do this? So I really am at a point where I am stumped. I don't understand what I need to do. I've, for so long, prayed to God, what am I supposed to be doing? What? And if I'm supposed to be doing something, where, when, how? Tell me how. Where is it at? I mean, because I don't know. And trying to fight appeal boards and all this other stuff, it just brings on more stress, which then creates more of a anxiety and a depression, which crashes everything. So what am I supposed to do? I wish I knew. I really do. I have a ton of talents. And I'm not going to say like juggling or something like that. I mean, I really do have a ton of talents. But the problem isn't whether or not I have the talents. It's that my talents aren't going to get me somewhere in the middle of nowhere. It's just not. And as much as I'm funny and I'm sweet and I'm Christian, I don't have a situation in my life where I can make something out of that. I write poetry. I've done art before, but it's not something that you can make money out of. It's just not. It's not profitable. So what do I do? And I think that's my major point of sadness. And each day, including this last week, I have run into situations that have been embarrassing, horribly embarrassing and upsetting and disturbing. There are more signs that are very detailed signs that it's MS and that it's something I can't control. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it, but I can't stop it either. And for me, fighting the fight that I'm fighting every day to throw more on the fire makes it harder to deal with waking up or going to sleep or even just going outside, because you don't know when something wrong is going to happen. I've had new bruising start, which doesn't make sense. Pop-up bruises, which are scattered all over the place. And they're not, I mean, it's not like it's actual, it's not like it's actually rashes. It's bruising and it's all over. And it doesn't make any sense. There was nothing that was done that could have made that. And it makes no sense. It literally makes no sense. Now that I'm having issues during my sleep that are not good, it's become another punch in the stomach. And I'm supposed to be able to explain to somebody on a board, a panel, as to why I have these problems. How am I supposed to know? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you what to do. I only know that whatever I have and whatever is going on with me and whatever is going to continue to go on with me for the next, as long as I'm alive, I don't have that answer. I wish I did. But I got to find some way to be able to support myself so that my life can move forward from this. Because up until now, I was not able to do that. And I'm still to the point where I don't know what it is that I need to do, but I'm still not able to do that. So the question becomes, what? I mean, what? And my memory is bad. So how am I supposed to do all this stuff? I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. I wish I did. But I think being honest with people and being honest with others about what you're going through and what you feel helps them so that they know that they're not alone. It takes a lot of the hidden parts of our lives that we want to try to hide from others because we feel shame or guilt or senses of remorse or senses of, oh, we're not being honest with somebody. And it kind of just scrapes that away to where we realize if somebody's going to like us or care about us or love us, it's because they do, not because they have to. And I think that gets mixed up along the way. I'm not going to say it's a good thing because it's not, but I do think it gets mixed up along the way. I think we forget that if people don't love us for who they are and who we are and what they can handle and what they can't, that's up to them. But to learn to accept your own difficulties and your own problems is something that is huge and is major that you need to do for yourself. So I have avoided dating. I've avoided everything outside of just being around my son. I have. Because I really don't want to put my problems on somebody else. But at the same time, I know there's somebody out there who isn't going to care, who's going to want me for me. And that's great. But I still am stuck in this situation of what do I do in order to be able to move on with my life and be able to make a money and a job or some kind of income for myself, even during this all. And I don't know. And I don't know anybody who can answer it. I really don't. So each one of our struggles are always different. And all I can do is ask people to pray for me. I don't know. because this is, I'd say difficult, but difficult isn't close enough. It's kind of miserable. So if anybody has any ideas, it would be nice as well. Please don't put nasty things in. I am Christian. Sorry, I don't do certain things, and I don't do things against the law, but I honestly would like some advice, because at this point I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. My son doesn't know what to do. And I have no family or friends that would know what to do either. Because me, I'm not their problem. They have problems of their own and health problems of their own, situations of their own, or we don't have contact. So all I can do is ask for help. That's it. And I think being open and honest with people is the best thing you can do. Instead of pile on the lipstick and the makeup and put on the heels and do the walk and the talk and pretend like you're something you're not. Because I am what I am, and that's all that I am. And you either take it or you leave it. And either you want to be there as a human being, understanding another human being, or you don't. And it's that simple. So, God bless you all. I don't know if you know something I don't, because right now I don't know anything. So if you know something I don't, I'd appreciate it. But thank you. I know this was a long, painful, however many minutes, but it's my story of my life in which I've been going through for a while, my health issues. And I know they're not going to stop. It's not going to get better. Not yet. It's going to be a lot yet to do. Spinal taps and all this other stuff yet. More blood panels. So maybe somebody else knows, because I don't. And maybe those who see it can pray. And pray hard for me, because I definitely need it. God bless you all. And I hope you take really good care of yourselves. Because trust me, if you don't, eventually it does catch up. And if you're not taking care of your own happiness, but you're making everybody else happy, eventually it comes back to where it does take a toll on your own health in worse ways than you could have imagined. And I know that has a lot to do with how bad it got, how fast. So God bless you, and I hope you all stay safe. Bye, everyone. Hugs.